Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week, we continue the build-up to the next week's release of the fourth Captain America movie.
Captain America,
Civil War
Brave
sometimes
New World.
slips in under an Avengers movie in my brain.
It feels like an Avengers movie. Something happened when they stopped numbering movies when they get past 3. It's kind of like...
Things get a little silly.
Like, I forget there's 4 Thor movies, even though for like a year it was like Thor, 4 more Thor.
Yeah.
But I still kind of forget there's a 4th one.
Yeah, you're right.
Once you get to 4, it's kind of weird.
Things start getting weird, but...
And you can't even restart the numbering because we never numbered them to begin with because it's Anthony Mackie as Sam.
Yeah,
You can't be like Cap 1 again.
Because there was never a Cap 1.
There was never a Cap 1.
There was Captain America, the first Avenger.
Captain America, the second Avenger.
But he wasn't that.
No,
Captain
he
America,
wasn't.
the first Avenger again?
Captain America, the second Captain America?
That's...
Now we're working here.
Now we're working with a title that no one would want.
I think it's got Fast and Furious vibes to it in a weird way.
Oh, I could see that, which is not... I don't think the energy that this film franchise is going for.
I think not from the trailers, no.
Well, but we'll see on that one.
We'll see on that one. So we're doing the Hurt Locker this week.
We're doing the Hurt Locker this week in build-up to Captain America, Brave New World next week. So we decided to take a dip into some other Anthony Mackie. And this movie is not lacking of other Avengers as well.
Avengers I didn't even know about. Like, I knew about Renner.
We knew Renner was here.
I had no idea Evangeline Lilly was a small, tiny role in this, who was the Wasp.
Yeah.
And then Guy Pearce, who's just like a bad guy in Iron Man 3.
He was the villain of Iron Man 3.
But yeah,
he was the extremist guy. His name has escaped me. I almost had it. It was right there, and it just, it
if
slipped
you
through my
hadn't
fingers.
forgotten, I bet I would know. We were just having a conversation and weren't trying to remember the name of the extremist guy.
Yeah. Well, Guy Pearce in Iron Man 3, he played... Remy.
He's not Hammer.
It's
not Justin Hammer.
No, it's not. It's not Justin Hammer. It's definitely a name that I won't be able to look up in time.
One of the R ones? Roxxon? No, he's not Roxxon.
No, well,
he's not Roxxon.
We'll never know.
They've wiped it from the internet.
They've wiped it clean. So we're talking about the Hurt Locker today on the episode. But before we do get into the full episode today, we do want to take a second to thank our friends and partners over at Manscaped. They've partnered with us before. They've done it again by kindly sending me their Handyman, which is their compact face shaver.
It was very kind of them, and I've enjoyed hearing you in the bathroom be like, oh, this is nice. Like ringing endorsements throughout the entire house of like, babe, you gotta check this out.
It is nice.
I'm nice for you.
It is. I really like it. It's smooth. It's been a good shave. It hasn't nicked me. It hasn't irritated. It's felt really good. And also, it's just like, I really like the products that Manscaped makes. Like, I've used their body groomers and trimmers before, and they made these products where they're like, hey, we don't nick and cut you. And it's like, okay, why hasn't this been the technology for everything the whole time?
People shouldn't be allowed to nick and cut us.
To be like, well, give me one for my face, too. You did so good with the body. Come on, Manscaped. And then they thankfully did. It feels like that moment in time. Remember when like clothing companies were like, hey, we made tags that don't itch anymore. And it was like, well, then let's get all the itchy ones out of here. What are we doing?
I kind of didn't really realize those went away.
Yeah, we grew up in a period where there were itchy tags for a while until someone, the Manscaped of clothing tags, someone figured it out. And Manscaped has figured out, like, hey, we know how to avoid the nicks and cuts and the things that kind of... They do make a great trimmer that I really like. I like that it charges via USB-C. I like that it's waterproof as well. It's just very comfortable. It's easy to clean. And then it's just... less wasteful stuff that I'm buying and using and throwing away. I'm just using this all the time now. I'm not bothering with a bunch of accoutrements and razors and things that I need to order. And it's there. I charge it every once in a while, and it's so easy and great. And our friends over at Manscaped would like you to join the over 12 million men who trust Manscaped and upgrade to the Handyman Rocket Man. You can use our promo code SUPERHERO for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code SUPERHERO at manscaped.com. Don't miss out. Upgrade your grooming game with Manscaped today. And thank you, Manscaped, for being friends.
Thank you so much, Manscaped.
for your friends and partnership. And now let's get into the episode. Let's talk about The Hurt Locker. All right, we have seen The Hurt Locker, not for the first time.
Not for the first time. I'm actually shocked. I'd seen it before when I was reading in the trivia that this movie only made like $10 million. I was like, why have I seen it then?
Yeah.
How did it get on my to-watch list? I assume because of the Oscars, but...
Or at least I think that was its like box office. So I think this is one of those films that it's like,
DVD.
it really made it up with the DVDs. It really made it up with the DVDs.
Yes, so that makes a lot of sense. As a woman who loves a good DVD...
You love a good physical
and
media.
also, I worked in several video stores, so I will get also like free DVDs.
That'll do it too.
Not to brag about my past work experiences and the perks thereof.
Well, speaking of what you love or don't love, you love the physical DVDs, but what about this movie? Diana, did you like it?
I did like it. It's definitely not a love. I think I admire it more than I like it. I think I watch it and I'm like, oh, wow, this is really well directed. This is really well performed. This is a wonderfully made movie. I don't really know what it's trying to say, and I don't really care what it has to say, but I'm like, damn, what a really nicely made movie. So there is a little bit of a disconnect of the enjoyment for me because I really love like latching onto characters and loving characters, which doesn't really happen in this movie. You're like, I wonder if they're gonna blow up, but I'm not like, oh no, what if they blow up? I'll miss them. No one in this movie makes me feel like I'm going to have a loss in my life if they die. Maybe that's part of the message. I don't know, because that's kind of what the characters are worried about throughout the movie as well, that no one's going to care if they die. Oh, fuck, I'm figuring it out as I go. I'm talking through the themes. All right, here we go. No. But yeah, I like it a lot performance-wise. It's gorgeous. There is like quite a bit of tension. I don't know if there's just not enough tension for me because I've seen it before, so I kind of knew what was going to happen. But I agree. But like film-wise, they filmed tension very well of opening up bombs, of being under fire, things like that. So yeah, it's an incredibly well done movie that's only a like for me. But I admire for a lot of reasons. And then there's some other just like war reasons that I don't. For war reasons. Andrew, did you like The Hurt Locker?
I think I'm similar to you, maybe with a slightly more of a like. I agree with you. It's definitely a film that you admire. A lot of it is vibes. I think that there are some good performances here. I think the direction is really what elevates this movie. There are performances that I think are just right for what the director is going for, what Catherine Bigelow is going for. So it's good casting, good performances for this director. So I think it's a very director-heavy movie where it's a lot of vibes, it's a lot of visuals, and it's getting just the right shot and just the right performance for just the right kind of moment. I agree with you that, like, it's kind of a statement piece. Like, there's not a lot of theme or character development. It's a lot of just kind of pointlessness. It's aimless existing under the fear of death, which in itself might be the statement on the Iraq War that it's making, but that's kind of a trickier and harder thing, and I think there's a bigger conversation to have there about war movies in general, whether it's even possible to have a war movie that's critical of war, because movies are meant to look cool, and once you glamorize something, it complicates what the message is, and so that becomes a much bigger conversation. But I agree with you, it is not a traditional plot-driven thematic film in terms of we are going from A to B, we are trying to accomplish C, this movie ends at D. There's no hero's journey. There's a series of scenes where people do or do not die under the fear and threat of dying or not dying. And that is just kind of being around, and explosions might happen. And that is the movie. It's maybe not the deepest thing in the world, but I think the vibes that it's going for is absolutely accomplished. Like, I think everything that was set out to be made and set out to be said in this movie is successfully accomplished, which makes it, I think, a successful and interesting piece of art.
Yeah, I think it is successful. I think it's one of those, like, even though I liked it, like, not for Diana's. Like, you're never going to get to a love in this kind of vibes movie about war for me. I think, like, when I think back to, like, war movies I love, like, there aren't very many. Like, there's a lot that I, like, liked and think were really well made. I think a war movie I loved was, like, Three Kings. And that is such a clear, like, we do a bit of a heist and there's shenanigans.
Yeah.
And then we're good guys at the end. I'm like, look at that movie. That might as well not be even set in a war.
There's a strong there's a strong driving force moving through that.
Yeah, but this one just being kind of like vibes. But yeah, I almost don't want to get into the themes right away, but I'm like confused about it just because there's war movies that are about like the monotony of war, like Jarhead. That's like nothing happens and we're stuck here and every day is the same. And that's not really what this is, because every day is very different and they have tons of different bombs to disarm and different scenarios with bombs. It's not really repetitive. And then other movies are like, this is something to say about this specific war. And I don't really know that this movie does. But war movies also make me feel dumb because I never know enough about wars.
Sure.
I don't know if it's my Canadianness. I don't know if it's my age, just kind of always missing a war. Like, I'm like, I never really got a grasp on Vietnam.
Sure. Okay.
I never really passed my time.
Yep.
And then just like a little bit too young when Iraq started to be reading the news.
Okay.
So I just feel like I haven't grasped a lot of wars.
See, you know what? I appreciate that vulnerability, and I fully get it as well. It's something that, like, I feel to a slightly lesser degree where it's like I am just smart enough to get into conversations over my head. And
oh no, you got entry knowledge.
Yes, I got entry. I almost wish I was like, oh, if I didn't know that touch, I'd just be like, I can't take part in this conversation, guys. But I know just enough to get in, and then I'm like, oh no, fuck, I actually can't keep up with people who actually know this topic. And then I feel wildly intellectually insecure and just kind of fall apart inside.
Oh, see, I've always thought you were so smart about war stuff for one specific reason. It was when we were doing Kong Skull Island, and I was like, this is a fun movie about an ape, right? And you're like, this is a deep analogy about the Vietnam War and what it's done to Samuel L. Jackson's character. I'm like, oh yeah, of course it is. I knew that. Oh. I just kind of, if you re-listen to that episode, I'm just kind of like, yes, of course.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. We both are saying the same thing about war stuff.
It is also about a big ape.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't have the additional perspective of any particular
And I would
war.
say largely it's about the sexiest group of people ever assembled on film. But then secondary, there was some Vietnam stuff in Kong.
Yeah,
but then number one was about the sexiest people on film. Then number two, it was about when an ape hilariously throws someone who tries to make the suicide play. And then there was some Vietnam stuff.
We could talk about Kong Skull Island all day, but unfortunately we're here to talk about, not unfortunately because it's a good movie, but I'd really love to talk about Kong Skull Island all day.
I understand.
But yes, when I watch war movies, I just always hope they're not about any particular war. I'm like, I hope this is general war.
And
because I don't know.
I think that like the themes that this portrays of Iraq, which I think is also a theme that is portrayed of a lot of war films that cover, different wars throughout history, is that it is about the meaninglessness of it all and the kind of like insane monotony of war to a certain degree. And it's also hard, I think, for war films sometimes to have an active protagonist because that's not what soldiers are. Soldiers are literally reactive protagonists. They don't do anything unless they're given orders to do things.
Yeah, they kind of
unless
just wait
you've
around.
gone rogue or done something weird, But yeah, I think it's about that. I don't know. Like
I don't get any feelings of monotony in this movie. This
or
movie
just
feels like it never stops.
Or just like the meaninglessness of it. Like the idea that like it doesn't stop. It's like you finish your tour and go, and then you're kind of addicted to it, and you try to come back. And it's not about resolving the conflict or moving on, or about like, can I make that big difference that wins us this thing for America. It's just I don't know, there's bombs. Sometimes I pull out the thing. Sometimes they explode. Sometimes they don't. I hope I die. and just that's war. And I think that in itself, that's the statement. Like this movie opens with a quote from a book that I've read. It's actually a good book that I would recommend. It's called "War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning," which is a very good read and a very good book. And it's from Chris Hedges, and it's all about like the opening quote in this movie is like, "War is a drug. It's a lethal addiction." And the book is called "War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning," and it's kind of similar to like if you titled a book like "Heroin Makes Me Feel Like God." It's like, this is a bad thing. Like, war is something that like people weirdly have series of psychological conditions and traumas where once you have experienced it, you permanently exist in that state, don't know how to exist outside of that state. So it examines some of the psychological and sociological issues of what soldiers go through in war, kind of analyzing largely the fall of the former Yugoslavia and the war in the Balkans. And it's very interesting.
You know so much about wars.
It's very
Look at all the wars
but no
you
one
just
asked me
brought up.
follow-up questions about that.
Just this is the great thing about our podcast. You can just say everything you know. I will have no further follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'm
That's
just
perfect.
like, Andrew knows everything about wars, you guys.
And
But it's very...
And the book is about like a lot of the trauma and condition where you can't mentally escape it, and you kind of just want to be around death and you want to die, and it just breaks you mentally. And that is obviously what the lead character, Jeremy Renner, in this movie is going through. But it doesn't feel as critical of war as that book is. Mm-hmm. But I think this is also just a bigger thing that I kind of glanced on, where it's like no film can be, because films are meant to look sexy, starring sexy people, and it looks cool. And books don't have slow motion. You know, like books can be like, war is bad, but a movie has to be like, war is bad. And here is Guy Pearce dying, but he's also jumping in slow motion away from an explosion. And we have an overhead shot from a helicopter. And it's so much harder to be critical when you're also trying to be visually appealing at the same time.
There is a visual appealing to this that I will say, but I will say I do find this to be a pretty critical movie, because at the end of it, I can't imagine wanting to do this. Like some war movies, you're like, yeah, they were heroes and they did it. Like Jeremy Renner can't even save that last guy, like one guy with a bomb on him. Like they don't save anyone. They stop a couple bombs from blowing up, but the areas are always already evacuated every time. Like there's no saving anyone. There's just dying. And no one seems to like to be there. I think, honestly, if you took away that one part where the like colonel kind of is like nice to Jeremy Renner, he's like, "You're so cool. You're such a badass. How many bombs have you deactivated?" If you take that out, no one thinks anything happens as cool.
Yeah, that is true.
No one really glorifies anything that's going on.
Yeah.
He compliments him. I couldn't remember the word compliments.
Yeah.
That word was gone.
But a loaded...
That's why I don't know anything about war.
You didn't even have compliments.
I didn't even have a word.
No, hey, you had the moment. You knew what you needed to
say.
say.
Yeah, I just don't feel... Yeah, other movies I've felt more like glorified by war.
There's definitely more...
This is cool.
There are definitely more glorifying movies that are just straight up funded by the American military.
There are many.
There is Top Gun Maverick. Like, there are straight up just recruitment tool films. But even the ones that are critical sometimes end up being recruitment tools. Yeah. Like there's an interview that I saw like with a Marine who said that like Full Metal Jacket.
I've seen that one.
Yeah. Where he's like, Full Metal Jacket's the reason I signed up. It made the Marines look so cool. And he's like, if you talk to most Marines of my age, about 70 or 80% of us signed up because Full Metal Jacket just made it look so cool. And it's like, well, that's that movie was a criticism.
Wildly critical.
A wild criticism. It's like, yeah, but they looked awesome, and I wanted to be the cool one. I wouldn't be Vincent D'Onofrio because I'm so much cooler.
Yeah.
And that's just
no one ever thinks they're that guy.
Yeah. So it's hard to, no matter how critical something is, dumb people will take the wrong lesson out of it to a certain degree. But that's not the movie's fault.
That's not the movie's fault. It is critical.
But let's go on to some lighter fare, if you would like.
All right. Here's slightly lighter fare. That is like, I'm going to give this a negative, even though it's all made really well. I don't like how there's a bunch of things that aren't about bombs. Because, like, the first, like, 3 things we do are bombs. Like, we do bomb stuff.
Right into the bomb stuff right away.
Right away, I think the first, like, 4 actions are just heavy, really cool bomb disarming scenarios. But then we have got a long sniper situation. And then we've got, like, we're chasing bad guys through the streets, and that third guy who's not an Avenger gets shot. I'm sure he has a name, but he's just not an Avenger. He's not Jeremy Renner. Or
The non-Avenger,
Mackie.
yeah.
The non-Avenger. And then we have Renner going on, like, a revenge crusade for the kid. And I'm just like, there's no bombs anywhere.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if you're, like, you've got, like, a theme of we're the bomb people, you can't have that much non-bomb stuff.
Yeah, you know what? That is fair. And I would say that like the sniper battle, while cool, does feel like a sequence from a different movie.
Because it's also very long. If it was a little bit shorter, I'd forgive it. It's kind of like, I do like this, like, Anthony Mackie's in charge of this scenario in a way, even though Renner outranks him. Like, he's sniping. He's the one holding ground. He's the one who went up there and got the gun. I do like it as, like, a performance piece for him and his character. But it's, like, it's just way too long, and it goes on too long.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
it feels like I'm in a sniper movie. I'm like, sniper movies are different movies.
And I think the only purpose it serves is to kind of show that like that Renner's character, is it James or Jimmy? James. So Renner's character James is not. I think they almost have that scene to be like, this guy isn't Lethal Weapon, like Mel Gibson's character in Lethal Weapon. Like, this guy isn't a psychopath who like will walk into a line of fire and is like, please shoot me, I want to die. But he is addicted to almost dying, and he kind of hopes, but he's not moronic to the point of like losing a battle or walking into a line of fire or truly getting his teammates killed. Like, he does sincerely to be like, I'm not going to follow an order, and I'm okay with getting blown up. But in a scenario like this, I'm not okay with walking into a line of fire or letting my friends die who don't deserve to die. So it softens him to a certain degree and definitely like unites the unit a little bit more, only for them to like have this little moment of hope and fall apart, which is kind of an interesting feeling. But it is just a different tone and a different vibe, and I don't know if that little bit of hope feeling that it provides is worth the sequence.
Yeah, as good as it is, and you're right, it does make you like Renner a lot more as a capable leader, because he's the leader, but he's also the one who goes into the line of fire, which is kind of weird to me, because I'm a Star Trek girl. I'm like, the captain stays in the ship. Like, the leaders aren't really supposed to go ahead, but he's the highest ranking, and he gets to go disarm the bombs and decide what to do. So it is a nice scene to say, like, oh no, he's not actually a bad leader. He'll like let the other guy snipe, and he will take care of everyone. He's not doing reckless things when other people are involved. It's only when he is just walking straight into a bomb. So, oh yeah, he is nice, but we didn't need this lengthy sequence, and we didn't need it to be a sniper sequence. There's other ways you could do it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Or then again, at the same time, I'm like, I wonder if the whole movie was bombs, if I'd be like, lot of bombs. I don't know if I just would be critical in the other direction if they just did all bombs.
Right. And you know what? Maybe I wonder how that would kind of test in that regard. If it would feel like, oh, it's a bit monotonous then of the like three of the same thing. So maybe it does break it up a little bit, but right now it feels like it's just kind of different.
I did like how many different kinds of bombs they had, though. That was very interesting to me. Of like, oh wow, you guys get called to a lot of different things, and all of them seem wildly valid and like they would actually happen.
And different enough that they're all visually interesting in a different way as well, between like a car bomb, that one overhead shot of Renner pulling up the wire.
Oh, that shot's so
that
cool.
spider web out into multiple bombs.
Giant bombs. They're all so big.
Yeah, we got a secondary, and then he's just pulling the wire, and
like
it's just a bunch
bombs.
of them come up. Really, that's a great visual. And then like there's the insanity of the car and everything like that. So just they all have like a little bit of unique flavor to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely do. I mean, speaking of just visual, I think my favorite sequence is actually when Guy Pearce dies. That explosion is awesome. And I mean, I said this movie doesn't make war look really cool, but you're right. Some parts just look really cool. Like when all the gravel just goes up from the explosion and you can see the shockwave, and then his mask is just covered in blood and the shockwaves clearly killed him even though he's got the suit.
It tells you as an audience everything that you need to know with no lines of dialogue, with no follow-up with the coroner. It's just like, you know what happened.
He's
you get
toast.
it. You get it.
He's absolutely toast. Although I'm questioning because I feel like Renner was just as close to those kind of explosions, and his face didn't just explode. At least twice.
Yeah. I think it depends on the type or whatever.
Yeah. His bomb seemed, every bomb Renner disarmed was giant.
It was big.
He didn't find, I mean, they didn't show us every single day. I'm sure some days he found small bombs.
Yeah.
But every bomb was just so big.
Yeah. I mean, if that car one blew up, he's liquid. Like, that's done.
I understood why he took the suit off. He was absolutely right
What's
to
the
do
point?
so. That wasn't going to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, what's the point there? But things that are truly bad and evil still look cool in slow motion. So, yeah, the Guy Pearce explosion, it looks cool. And is that demonstrably bad? Yes. But everything looks cool in slow motion.
Everything looks cool.
It's just
I mean,
a side
there's a
effect of slow
reason
motion.
Snyder does it.
Yeah. It does look cool. It just does. Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about Renner in this. I really think that Renner is very good casting for this. I spent a lot of this just kind of thinking on Jeremy Renner as an actor and it's just as a person where I'm like, what is it about him where sometimes he really works and sometimes he doesn't work at all, but I could see why I'm like, I get why you were cast here, but you don't work. Or I get why you were cast here, but you do. What is the difference with the Renner line? And I think I figured out what it is. And to compare Renner to someone, and even though they are wildly different, but they have the same core, he has a core similar to Ryan Gosling. Hear me out. Let me finish.
Let him cook.
Let me cook. Jeremy Renner is just kind of dirtbag dad Ryan Gosling, where he does very little and he lets whatever the director wants reflect what meaning we want to put onto that character.
Okay.
So he just lets the environment and the director determine what we think of his characters, which is like a very minimalistic performance style where it's like this guy is a crazy guy who is not acknowledging the severity of the situation. It's just Jeremy Renner lighting a cigarette as Jeremy Renner being like, yeah, that was one where I cut the wires again. But Catherine Bigelow as a director and the way that they are showcasing it and the way that it is written and the way that it is all displayed imparts a lot of value on that. And I feel like Gosling is someone in his career that has had quite a few roles like that as well, where it's like, say less, do less. We are going to have other people respond to how little you do. And if the writing works, it really highlights you. And I think it's just a very similar of minimalism, but Renner's is more of a Boston, you think you're better than me type of minimalism, as opposed to what Gosling brings to the table.
Ryan Gosling's got like a quiet soft boy energy, and no one would call Renner a quiet soft boy.
Yeah, but they're both just kind of blank lumps of clay. And that's something that directors do really like sometimes. And it explains, I think, why like Renner has gotten so many huge projects and so many big opportunities is that I think he's showing up to auditions and doing table reads and screen read tests as just a wet ball of clay. And directors are like, I fucking love this. He's doing nothing. So I get to decide where the camera goes to make him look menacing or friendly. Like, I can completely decide what this guy is.
I want to agree with you, and I don't disagree, but I want more information. What's a movie where you think he doesn't work? Because I don't really think of a bad Renner. Not that I'm like, Jeremy Renner's always good, but I'm like, what movie didn't Jeremy Renner work in?
Interesting. I don't think that he worked in Mission Impossible.
Oh, in Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
I kind of
this, like, I'm a cool guy with an edgy past, and, like, I feel a little guilty, and it's like...
That's because he was all Tom Cruise's character, but not as cool.
Yes.
And he was supposed to take over.
Yeah, but he needed to do more of that outwardly. Tom Cruise does a lot of that outwardly in that franchise.
It's not an inward franchise.
He's doing it blankly, and the direction isn't making him cool. And so I feel like that's one where he kind of falls flat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like when he was Jason Bourne as well.
That is a very flat. But the Bourne movies are such flat movies that I'm like, he's doing what the Bourne movies do. Like, in a lot of ways, there are kind of just, we're here, we're fighting, we're in Europe.
I think that Damon did a better job of being like, kind of like panicked, like, who am I? Why are you mad at me? Who's chasing me
Jeremy
right now?
Renner had his memories.
And and still didn't have enough to kind of. So I think it's just like a little. And I think the scene in this movie where it shows the most is the scene where he needs to fully perform the subtext. And it's the scene where at the end of the movie where he's back and he's with his daughter and he's got the Jack in the Box. And he's like, sometimes things don't actually make you feel anything when you get a little bit older, except for maybe one thing. And he's talking about himself and going back to war. But I'm like, this is a place where like a Oscar-winning actor would have to like uppercase a act, bring gravitas, start swelling up with tears, show us in his face what all of these words mean, because nothing that interesting is going on around you, and you need to give a performance that contrasts the softness of a baby playing with a Jack-in-the-Box, and he doesn't have that. But when he has to play flat around a bunch of explosions, that contrast works really well. So,
See, I like Renner in this, and I think I like Renner the most in kind of these more serious movies. I think just because he just gets to sit in a scene. I don't even think it's that, I don't know if it's this lump of clay thing that you said, but I think when he does get to actually like have like a longer scene and actually act a little bit, it actually really pays off. And he also feels just like a regular guy. Like you said, a really like Oscar actor would have done the scene with his daughter. I thought that was a son actually, but I'll take daughter.
Or child.
Child.
A baby.
A baby. It's hard to tell when they're baby.
Yeah, a baby.
With his child would like go over the top and maybe in a way that real people don't actually do. And like I was like, oh, I think that is actually how a very unemotional, closed off man who just wants the adrenaline rush of war would talk to their child. They wouldn't have an emotional breakdown about it. The emotional breakdowns are for when you shoot your fellow soldier in the leg and break his femur in 9 places after a mission that you made him go on against his will. So bigger things have broken you than just being like, man, this Jack in the Box. Can you believe it? Like, I get why that scene's small, and I believe it, and I think it's the right choice.
Yeah.
So I like Renner quite a bit in this. I don't think, as I said, I don't think the movie, I don't know what the movie's trying to tell me about this man other than, wow, he sure needs to go back to war. And some people need that, but I think his performance is quite good.
And now I do want to be clear. I'm agreeing with you that I do think he's great in this.
I know,
except
but
for
I
that
think
one
I
scene.
I think
one scene.
I like that scene, and I think I like him for different reasons than you. But I also agree he's good.
Because I think when we compare it, if we compare it to like other war movies, I think that like Jake Gyllenhaal in A Jarhead does both of the like I'm flat when I need to be flat and when I need to act, I go big and chew the scenery. Like he flicks that switch into like, and now my character's truly psychotic and I need the audience to see that. And just that switch doesn't get flicked. But I like Renner. I think he's well cast. I think he works in all of this movie, except for that thing.
I feel like we should also talk about the reason we're doing this movie is Anthony Mackie.
Absolutely.
And he's great.
Yes.
He's got such energy. He's got such urgency. I believe that he thinks he's going to die at any moment. I love how frustrated he gets with Renner's character. I love when they reconcile for just a bit and then he's like, fuck, I hate Jeremy Renner again. They're really up and down. I believe it every time. He's just so real. Anthony Mackie's very good.
Yes. Yeah, really good. He plays this with such charm and charisma and likability as well, even though he's doing kind of muted things sometimes, but it's way more likable. And I think his breakdown works way better as well when he's finally having this like, how do you even have a kid, man? What am I doing here? What am I doing here?
I need a legacy. Like if I die, it means nothing unless I've had a child. I'm like, it's not a good reason to have a child, but I understand the mental how you got there.
Yeah. I understand the freak out you're having in this moment, and he brings it in that breakdown. Now that's the acting switch I'm talking about.
But he brings it, but the rest of the movie he's also animated. It's not like his character is suddenly very different. The rest of the movie he's also like, don't take your fucking headphones off. We need to talk to each other. We're gonna die. Yeah. He's very good the whole time.
Yeah. Cool, competent, a really likable, charismatic guy.
Here's a question just structurally that I do find strange about this movie. And I don't even dislike it. It's just very unusual that this movie basically introduces Mackie as the lead. But then Jeremy Renner really becomes the lead character because the whole opening sequence doesn't involve Jeremy Renner. He doesn't show up until Guy Pearce dies. And it's just a very weird structure of I wouldn't say it's co-leads. I would say at the end of the day, Jeremy Renner is the lead of this movie because we end with Renner. We don't really find out what happens to Mackie after he leaves war. Like, does he have a child? Does he meet up with that girl? He really ends when the war ends.
Yeah.
So I do find the structure of this I think it works, but it's unusual and it's not how most movie structures work.
Now, I definitely agree with that. I think that, and I don't know if this 100% works, but I think I get what they're going for here, is that Renner, I think that Anthony Mackie is the, Sanborn, as Sergeant Sanborn. He's the POV character and not the lead character. So we are getting things from his perspective, but he's not necessarily the lead. Jeremy Renner as James, he is the subject of the movie. It's almost like he is the subject of a documentary film
That Anthony Mackie
is hosting. So I feel like, Mackie is the POV, he is the host, and Jeremy Renner is the subject of a film, of a documentary. And I think that is kind of meant to be the theme of this movie, where it's like the tension that we feel of a bomb that is waiting to explode is both the subject and the item of any given scene. But Jeremy Renner's character of James is also the bomb that we are keeping an eye on to see if he is going to explode.
Oh, babe, that's good stuff.
So I think that the item in every scene is a ticking time bomb. And that's what his character is. And so we are always experiencing, it's Anthony Mackie's POV of like, I am tense right now because I don't know if this bomb is going to go off. And that bomb is Jeremy Renner's character.
Oh, shit. And then Jeremy Renner is disarming an actual bomb.
Yeah.
Well,
so I think that...
No, I think you're absolutely right.
That's why it's hard to tell who the lead is of this film. Yeah.
Because also, like, Renner also goes off on his own to avenge... Beckham.
Beckham.
To avenge Beckham, and then also Mackie's out at the end during the whole final sequences. So it kind of like breaks the POV idea a bit.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. But also like the opening makes perfect sense of establishing how most people disarm bombs, which is how Guy Pearce does it. You send the robot in first. You only put the suit on as a last resort.
Yeah.
Your guys cover you. You run away from the bomb as quickly as possible, none of which Renner does. And it wouldn't be as impactful that Renner does things differently if we hadn't watched another man do it first, of like the accepted way of disarming bombs.
The safe and confident way.
I appreciate the movie is like, I'm going to assume you don't know how most people disarm bombs.
Helpful.
So I'm going to set a bar of how most people do it. They like to use the robot. Robot's real popular.
As well it should be.
As well it should be. I don't think Renner used it once.
No, well, yeah, get a better little cart. I'll say that.
Man.
What are we doing with that little cart?
When your robot has all these goddamn treads on it and basically is a tiny little tank, and your cart's only got 2 wheels.
Have the robot hold the thing.
Put it on the top of the robot. The robot was pretty flat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bombs, so maybe you don't want to do that, but also, like, you still don't want to carry the bombs. It's better than carrying the bombs.
It's better than carrying the bombs.
I couldn't believe he didn't just, like, pull it on one wheel. Who cares? One of the wheels is still on it. Pull it with no wheels. It's a robot instead of a human.
Yep. Yeah. So.
I've got other questions for the military that you probably can't answer.
I'd love to hear them.
You know a little bit about war.
And no matter what, I'd love to hear these questions.
I find it very strange that you can become a colonel as a therapist.
Oh.
When that guy showed up, because he was like basically the therapist doctor. They called him doctor. I think he is just a therapist.
I think so. Yeah,
unless
a
he was
psychologist.
Unless he was a medical doctor, but he didn't seem to be.
Yep.
So I think he was a psychologist, therapist, and so the first couple scenes they're at the barracks, and I'm like, I didn't really hear what his rank was. And then when he showed up in the field, and they're all like, Colonel. I'm like, a doctor can become a colonel? That seems crazy to me. I'm sure it's happened, but it just feels like I'd be like, what's your story, man? How did you become a doctor colonel?
Now this is one I will admit my ignorance.
Unless you're like a rocket scientist.
Sure. Yeah. And I will admit this. I can never remember a single military rank at all in an embarrassing way that, like, I've got nothing. I don't know who's above anybody in any regard. I've tried to learn it, even just to be like, I always feel embarrassed that I don't. And then I look it up and I try to memorize it, and my brain flushes that knowledge the second I close the webpage. I cannot retain what any rank is important in any regard. I just can't hold it. My brain just cannot hold it.
This might be the only thing I hold really well, mostly due to fan fictions and the show Stargate.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because people would get, because Stargate was on for I think 13 years, and characters would get promoted all the time, and you always knew who each person's like ranking officer was.
Sure, yeah.
So watching 13 years of Stargate, I'm like, I've got the ranks down. Yeah, it's general, colonel, lieutenant colonel, captain, staff sergeant, sergeant, private. I don't know what specialist is. They got a specialist in this movie. I think there's some little ones in there that I missed.
Oh,
that's the main.
There's a bunch, and I think it does also change depending on branch of the military as well, where it's like once you get into the Navy, you've got admirals and shit, and yeah.
But if you watch 13 Years of Stargate, you're going to get the basics down.
Of course,
flat.
Of course,
unless your favorite character is an archaeologist who doesn't have a rank.
And I might have a handful of naval ones from Star Trek, but like that's about it. TV can help, but I just can't retain them.
Oh, Lieutenant
I just
Commander?
can't retain them.
Okay. But anyway, Colonel's really high and Sergeant's really low, which is what everyone else is in the car.
Yeah.
Because Jeremy Renner's a staff sergeant, which is only just a bit above Anthony Mackie, who's a sergeant.
Yeah.
So and then Colonel's like super high.
Well, I think that God, I'm going in.
Tell me your war stuff.
I don't know where I'm like, is the movie saying something about the fact that it's like people with certain levels of education are of higher rank than people with more experience? It's that like enlisted versus officer. I think that's what I'm going for here.
Even calls Renner a redneck, and he's like, he brings up the fact that he's probably slightly uneducated in that way. So there might be something to be said for that.
An enlisted
the educated
versus officer thing?
The uneducated or the educated don't have to see the problems with war and also don't know how to deal with it. Street smarts versus book smarts, maybe perhaps.
Maybe. I don't know.
So,
but I think Mackie has the street smarts. I think Renner is, as much as he like calls him a hillbilly, has some kind of engineering or like electrical engineering degree. Like he
completely is unfazed
they don't
by every
do
bomb.
on-job traiing for bomb disarming, I think.
I have no idea, actually.
That's not I don't know what degree that they want. I'm assuming electrical engineering.
I assume just anyone who wants to learn how to dismantle a bomb, because I assume very little of what you know naturally goes into the bomb disarmament. I mean, maybe for I guess if people are making homemade ones, actually an engineering degree.
I think electrical engineering.
Because I'm thinking you have to know how the bomb was built, but if you're just making out of stuff around your house like cell phones and
if you're just checking wires and you're like, I need to know which one's the ground and the live wire, it's like I feel like some basic electrical understanding is probably a good building block.
None of them seemed particularly hard to disarm except to find the switch.
Yeah.
It's like you find the switch and you're good.
Yeah.
For these
Which
bombs.
makes sense. Like the I stands for improvised. They're playing jazz out here with
Wait, what is what are
improvised explosive device, IED.
Oh, that's what the I stands for.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah. I had no idea what any of
So
the
it's not
letters.
professionally, it's not made by a weapons manufacturer in the sense that it doesn't have highly engineered parts and casings.
What's the other kind? A PED? Professional explosive device?
I actually don't know if they I don't know what they would call that.
Oh, we only call out the makeshift bullshit?
Yeah, I think they would probably just call it by the name of the explosive. Like there's a claymore, a mine. Yeah, I don't know.
Brands.
Yeah. Yeah, they would use the brand. No indies.
That's an indie bomb.
No indie.
Yeah, no, it's not a brand name bomb. We don't know what to do with that. Get Renner in there.
Send him in. Put him in the fat boy suit. Put him in the big boy. Get that neck up.
There is a nice storyline in this movie, and I don't know what they're trying to say. Well, I guess I actually think this has some stuff to say. It's when Jeremy Renner thinks Beckham has been killed and then tries to avenge him, the little boy. Beckham's not dead.
Yeah.
This is huge.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means on a scale of it's weird to call a man racist when he tries to avenge a young boy of a different race, but also he wasn't sure it was him, and he thinks all young boys look the same.
Yeah, and he only saw him a couple times, and the body was pretty beat up. The
face didn't seem that messed up.
They had it covered in blood. I think the movie did a really good job of giving us, the audience, a couple of good looks at the face, and even I was, and leaving us in that really sweet mystery spot of me being like, was that the same kid?
Yeah, he's not moving, and can't hear his voice.
I'm questioning it, but the
Renner's so sure.
the character's telling me, so I got to take him on of putting us in the same position as Anthony Mackie to be like, I guess we're going with this. I think the movie does a really good job of doing
It does
that,
do a really good job, yeah. But then, like, the way he finds out he's alive and then just keeps walking, I'm like, this is insanity.
Yeah.
You didn't even celebrate that you were wrong. You weren't even happy about it. I guess no matter what, a child died.
Yeah, no matter what, a child died. And I think that, like, that's also, going back to the point of this movie to be like, yeah, it's not about, like, winning or saving the kid. The kid's safe. And he was just looking for a fight, a thing to do. It was delusional paranoia from a man who wanted to die. And I think that that's all it was. It was like, oh, the kid's alive. Okay, let's go see what happens today.
Right, I'll find something else to...
It's all the same. It is all the same to him. Yeah, but that is a wild thing for the movie to do. I think it's cool. I think it's a really great kind of storyline.
It's a twist I did not see coming. I mean, I think I remembered it this view, but I remember the first watch being very shocked. I've never seen a movie do this of, oh, that kid you thought was dead was actually alive. And then it's not the point of the movie.
No, it just moves forward. I feel like that is really the moment in this movie for me where I feel like the movie slaps you across the face and is like, none of this matters. There was
nothing that he's done has mattered.
Nothing in this conflict is of importance. No one cares about anything. This is just horror. Like this, there's no meaning to any of this. And I think that that's a good point to slap the audience with that for the most part.
Let me ask you a question, because I have a concern, and I don't know if this is a movie negative or a Diana problem. I think I might have helmet blindness, where I cannot recognize a character if they're in a helmet. Hear me out. Now, Jeremy Renner, Anthony Mackie, I'm like, I know them. I know them in the helmet. I know them out of the helmet. We watched this movie, and I was like, man, this first guy is cool. And at the end, you were like, that was Guy Pearce. I'm like, oh, fuck. Didn't recognize him at all because he was in a helmet, I guess. I like Guy Pearce. I've seen many things he's in.
And I don't even think he was in a helmet 100% of the time.
Well, that's what really sucks about it.
Or at the very least, it was like the big boy helmet with the visor up.
He didn't even have that on that long. He was like working the robot for a good couple minutes.
Yeah. So I think it was just him there.
So I'm worried I also have helmet blindness. Here's the other reason. It's because the third guy who's with them, Eldridge, who the non-Avenger, who's with the guys, I didn't realize he was the guy who was getting therapy from the Colonel for the first couple of scenes.
Oh.
I really thought this movie had an unrelated third storyline that was going to connect later. Every time they cut to this guy getting therapy, I was like, man, I wonder when this guy's going to meet Jeremy Renner and Anthony Mackie. Like, their storylines are going to converge, I guess. I didn't, for any point, I think it wasn't until, like, all three of them were in the barracks, like, halfway through the movie that I was like, oh, that's the same guy.
Interesting.
And I don't know if the movie should have established better that this is the same guy, or if I've got a weird face blindness if you have a mask on. Or a helmet, not a mask. A mask makes sense.
Obviously. Yeah,
no, but just a helmet and you're talking all the time. I should be able to be like, that's the same character.
I'm gonna actually put this out there
Okay.
and say that, like, it's somewhere in between.
Okay.
I think that this is some kind of, like, face blindness.
If I can't see your hair and ears.
You're calling it helmet blindness, which is funny, but, like, some kind of face blindness.
See the face.
But it's one that I think a lot of people actually experience. Because just anecdotally, this is just a personal anecdote here, is that I don't think I have particularly noteworthy hair. I think I have nice hair. I'm happy with my hair. I think it looks good. But it's not like I have, like, a spiked mohawk with, like, a big dinosaur bone through it. You know, like, I don't think I'm not a cartoon character. I don't have cartoon character hair.
Go-to.
Yeah. I was trying to think of, like, the most, like,
I'm Bam Bam from the Flintstones.
Well, literally, like, a cartoon character silhouette. But it's Canada and it's the winter time, and a lot of people will wear toques, or for our American listeners, a winter hat, a beanie, if you will.
You should call them toques, though. It's a great word. It's a good word.
It's just a better word. A winter hat, anything can be a winter hat if it's winter. Shut up. But it's a toque. And I'm wearing toques, and anyone who isn't in, I'm going to say, my 10 closest friends do not recognize me when I wear a toque. And I mean, like, literally, I will walk up to them and be like, hi, and start talking, and I'll get a sentence in, and I'll take my hat off, and they'll go, oh, Andrew.
Oh, shit.
Like, like, to the point where, like, it has, in the past, sincerely, affected my self-confidence for me to be like, I will talk to, like, literally like my 11th closest friend, and they will be like blank in the eyes, and I can see it, and then I take my hat off, and they're like, oh.
What a nice surprise.
But it's surprisingly common. I would say it's female predominant as well.
Oh, maybe we look at hair more than we look at facial features.
So I don't, but you saying this really is triggering this personal anecdote and feeling in me, where I'm like, if this up is gone on my face, then women in my life don't know who I am.
Oh, man.
They literally are just like, this is any man. And I don't know why that's so important. Yeah. But it's a thing that I've noticed anecdotally. So maybe it's something that clearly that you feel, but maybe I think it's a thing that's more common than people think.
It is masking a portion of your identity, whether you consider your hair that or not, when you have a hat or a helmet on.
But when we think of like what defines people, we think eyes and mouth, like where are you looking? And like where are you talking? How am I communicating with you? I've never been like, man, that upper 70% of forehead is where I really know somebody, Yeah, but
yeah, it is weird because for this specific instance, I think one of the main reasons that I didn't think it was the same guy, and this is my own, like, I guess fill in the blanks, when they introduced him in the beginning and he's got a helmet on, I assumed he was brunette because statistically most men are. So then when it cut to the barracks and there was a blonde guy getting therapy, I was like, that's a different guy.
Oh.
Because I had filled in the blanks with the helmet on that he was a brunette man.
Uh-huh.
And I just never connected for like half the movie until all three of them were together. I was like, oh, this has been that same guy. Huh. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. But I thought it was just one of those movies with like several different like war tracks happening.
Yeah. And there's multiple soldiers or something like that. I wanna hear from you, our listeners.
Oh yes, listeners, tell us. Do you have helmet blindness?
If you have helmet blindness, head blindness, toque blindness, maybe we need to come up with a uniform thing of this.
If you're Andrew's 12th closest friend and you've ever not recognized him.
Yeah. Like, sincerely, I there were several years there where I was like, am I just a forgettable person?
No, that ain't it.
But like I would walk up to people who I've known for 10 years and be like, hi, it's me, Andrew Ivamy, your friend Andrew, if I was leaving my hat on, because there would just be no look of recognition in their eyes.
Man, maybe that's why soldiers have to have a little name tag on.
That helps.
They can't recognize each other in their helmets.
Helps.
Shit.
Yeah.
Figure that out. I mean, that's also why everyone should have a name tag. More name tags.
Just more name tags in life.
I just want more name tags. I'm not good with names sometimes.
Oh, we've taken a turn here.
This is why I like this is why social media is good. Name right there.
It is quite helpful. Well, let's go in for the close. Other than more name tags, let's ask the final. My change for all movies.
Although the characters in this don't have them.
They have, so that wouldn't be your change in this one.
I need a new change.
Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change. So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this movie if you could change anything? Before we do ask that final question, we will remind you, as we do every week, to please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, YouTube, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It helps us move up the charts. It helps us find new listeners. And it just means a lot to us. And it's a free way to support the podcast.
Yeah, it really helps us out. Wherever you're listening or watching this, as Andrew said, we're on YouTube now. Hey, if you're viewing.
Hello.
Oh, Andrew gave you a little wave. Really just leave a like if you like. Leave a 5-star review. Leave a full written review. It helps us out so much. We'd really, really appreciate it.
Do you have helmet blindness? Get in the comments.
Tell us your thoughts.
Get down there. And that's a free way to support the podcast. And if you do want to support the podcast monetarily, you can do that over on our Patreon, which is a monthly subscription service. You can subscribe at whatever is in your budget, and you'll get cool bonuses for doing so. Like, for example, at the $1 level, you get our webcomic early. At the $3 level, you get these episodes early and ad-free. At the $10 level, you get all the other bonuses, plus you get an exclusive episode of this podcast every single month, and you get immediate access to the full back catalog as well. So lots of cool episodes.
Lots of cool episodes. I got some more cool stuff. You can buy individual episodes for $5 if you don't want to become a monthly subscriber. I love the early ad-free option because when like Captain America comes out next week, you're going to want to know on Thursday or Friday whether you should go see that. And we'll let you know if you're a $3 plus subscriber. And there won't be any ads getting in your way.
Get them out of here.
Through those.
So check
all good stuff.
All good stuff. Check out all the options over on patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That is patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And now, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, Diana, what would you change about this movie if you could change anything?
I wouldn't change very much, despite all my little nitpicks as we went along, because I don't know what else I would say about Iraq or war or anything, because as we've said, I'm slightly uneducated on these facts. So my basic change is going to just be from a structural point of view, because this is what I know. More bomb stuff. I don't like all the segues. I don't like going and chasing after bad guys. I don't like the sniper stuff. Not that I don't like it. It's well done, but I'm here to see a bomb movie. I want all cool kinds of bombs, because I loved how escalating they were, that they were getting bigger and bigger. Like, he pulled all those ones out of the ground, and you think, that's the biggest bomb we'll see. Then he opens the trunk of the car, and there's more bigger bombs. And then they don't get bigger than that. And we really built up and didn't get to a giant bomb. The guy in the vest was very sad, and he had quite a bit of C4 on him, but that wasn't whoa. I'd almost really like if the building that they found, who wasn't Beckham, but Beckham's body in, was full of explosives. If we blew that up, something giant has to blow up. This is a bomb movie. So I need a little bit more bombs and one final big bomb, because we don't really have... I think the tanker maybe was supposed to be the big bomb.
I think that was supposed to be the big one.
It happened off screen.
Yeah.
We didn't see it. We just showed up and saw the carnage of it. And, this is a spectacle. We're saying movies make war look cool, and that's what they're trying to do. And I'm like, I want to see a really big explosion. Or at least a really big bomb that would make an explosion if Jeremy Renner didn't detonate it. One massive one.
Ah, okay.
Or didn't disarm it, sorry.
Yeah.
So I want the fear of the whole block or the whole barracks blowing up, because they seed in maybe that the DVD guy is seeding information if Beckham had been killed, if that was the kid who'd been there, that they're actually maybe planting mortars and stuff. I would love if there was a giant bomb on the base, just massive in one of the cars or something.
Okay.
So I think that'd be cool. So just more bombs, basically.
Interesting.
More bombs, less of the other stuff. Andrew, what would you change?
I think my change would be just the ending. I don't think the scenes at home don't work. I don't feel connected to his family. I don't buy. I understand the message, which is just that he is addicted to the feeling of being close to death and cannot function in a normal society anymore. But I don't think the scenes tell that story well.
He's not
in
really
any regard.
unfunctioning.
Yeah, he's not
he got the
unfunctioning
cereal.
enough.
He took care of the kid.
It doesn't feel distant enough. Just the writing's a little stiff. The performances are stiff. It just doesn't kind of connect with me. So I think if it was just we're all going home and it just hard cut to him still there, and then the counter starts again, I think that tells us the same story without kind of slowing down the story for this home visit thing as well.
I can get behind that, because we don't really get to the monotony of home. It doesn't feel like it's really dragged him down, but he also doesn't feel like he's chomping at the bit to leave again. Yeah, the scenes don't do a whole lot. I think the biggest impact is at the very end when the counter goes back to 365 days.
Yeah,
that's the real hit.
Yeah,
of shit, he's doing this again willingly.
Yep. Yeah, so I think just switch to the counter again, or have a day pass, or something of we're going home, someone to kind of hammer it in and then just restart the clock,
Him and Anthony Mackie are going to 2 different flights, and he just Abe Simpson nopes the other way and goes back.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think something like that is a little bit cleaner.
I like that. No, I can totally get behind that. I don't need Evangeline Lilly in this.
No, get her out of here. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on the podcast. Next week, we will be back and we will be talking about Captain America, Brave New World. So we'll be talking about that next week. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find me online most places. I'm at Ivamey, Ivimey.
You can find me on Blue Sky and Tumblr at Words of Diana and Instagram at Pics of Diana.
And you can find both of us most places at From Superheroes. And you can check out everything we create over at FromSuperheroes.com. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.